everyone, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster here with another PB&J card class, and this is number 11 out of 12 in our New Year New Card Sketches video series. And this video is all about how to use those frame dies that come as part of a die set, but it's the smallest size. And those have stumped me sometimes, but now we have a sketch for it. So here is a look at that sketch. We're actually going to use those frame dies as a home for our sentiment. You could do it as a die cut sentiment or as a stamped sentiment, or in my case, I'm going to do both. Have a die cut sentiment and a stamped secondary sentiment. And I actually really love these for this purpose. Now I am working on 5x7 cards, but you can certainly scale this down to whatever size that you like working with, if that's standard size or not. And this is the little frame, the smallest size that's in our Classy Frames die. So we had another video where we used the larger die from that, and now we have a use for this tiny little die. It's not tiny, but smaller die that comes in that set. And I love being able to use all the elements of a die set because it's an investment and it's nice to be able to get lots of use out of it. I'm also using the sentiments that are from our Edger die sets in another way than the Edger by layering them on top. Now, just a reminder, I do have an ebook available for this video series that has all of the card sketches, 12 of them, and 36 card ideas. So I'll list that down for you below with a link to purchase it if you'd like to show your support. So let's move on now and get to making our card. So I went ahead and stamped my design using Memento Toffee Crunch onto Canson 140-pound watercolor paper. This beautiful stamp is from our Enchantingly stamp set. I've used it on other cards and I keep reaching for it again and again, and I love stamps like that. I also love sketches that help me to use my stamps in totally different ways. I've stamped this on the bottom right hand corner and the top left, which is a really nice starting point if you're wondering where to stamp a design. And then we'll just plop that sentiment with the frame die cut in the center, and it'll be a nice diagonal design with a nice flow from top left to bottom right. Now I did do some inking on top of that using that same color, the Memento Toffee Crunch, and an ink blending tool and a foam pad, starting off the edge and working my way on in a circular motion. And I did that on those same corners where I did the stamping. I used a PITT artist pen and this extra small journaling tip just to color over the stamen. That is waterproof, so I can watercolor over the top of that. And as I've been doing I'm going to use my Distress Ink Reinkers used as watercolors to paint this in. So I just have those on a palette off to the side along with a paper towel and a cup of water. If you'd like more detailed information about how I approach painting with the Reinkers, I'll link a video for you down below that goes much slower and in a lot more detail. But what I like to do is just pick up the concentrated Reinker ink off the palette and put it where I want the color to be darkest. And then I rinse off my brush, pat it dry, and go back and blend it. And I'm trying something a little different on these flowers today. I'm using a little bit of blue, and I just like that just to switch things up. I don't typically paint flowers in blue, but just for fun, I decided to do so. And I really like how these two blues go together. This is Broken China and Faded Jeans. So if you're looking for a fun blue combo, this is a really nice one. Now I will list everything I'm using down in the YouTube description box below. So I'll have all the stamps and the dies and everything listed and linked. And then there's another section called Other Supplies that will have all of the exact colors of paints and inks and what paper and paintbrush and all of that I'm using. So you'll find all of that in that YouTube description box. I'm working petal by petal, and I'm putting my darker color sort of where another petal goes behind another one. And that creates sort of that fullness of the flower. And I can even leave some white up at the tips of the petals, just adds to that fullness and some life and makes it so they don't all look like one giant petal or one big blob. It's an easy way to do that. Even if you just paint a flat wash of color over the top of the flower and leave a little bit of white at the tips, that will create a lot of dimension in your painting. So I'm just going to paint all of the flowers that exact same way. Another tip is stamp them going off of the edge of your panel, especially for this design where you're not die cutting them out, you're just doing it straight stamping and painting. Going off of the edge just gives a little more interest to the overall design. Now I am coloring in or painting the leaves with the peeled paint and following that same process. And now I have all of those die cut sentiments just on a piece of masking tape, and then I just fold the ends under and stick them on a piece of paper, and I can do them all at once, and it keeps it really handy and easy to paint, and any excess goes onto that scrap piece of paper. So I'm going to paint this word using the same colors that I painted the flowers, and I just follow that formula for all 3 cards. Whatever I paint the flowers with, that's the color I'm going to paint the word for. I don't have to do that, but it's just one less decision to make. If I do it for one card and I like how it looks, then I can just follow that pattern for the other 2. So once that is dry, I am going to go in with my Toffee Crunch and just very lightly go over the top of that, just kind of smooths it out. You could also cut that from colored cardstock, and then I will just peel that up off of the tape. And then I am going to glue it on top of another one just for some extra dimension and a finishing touch. So I'll just put a few dots of glue, liquid glue on there, and then put that on top. That also helps if it, like when you peel it up off the tape, if it gets a little bent, if you glue it on top of one that was not on the tape, it will pull it right back into the shape that you want. Now this classy frames, that small frame, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to layer a couple of those up. You could also play around with adding color to these frames. Like I said before, you could just stamp a sentiment on the inside. You wouldn't have to do the die cut sentiment. I'm going to do a secondary sentiment stamped and then the die cut sentiment. So another way to use those edger dies and the builder stamp sets that go with them. So I just have that stamp there for placement. And then I will add that. You can also see I embellished with just some butterflies, but I kept them white. They're just cut from the watercolor paper so that they're there to finish things off, but not too much there, if that makes sense. And I'm just going to stamp that sentiment using Acorn Archival ink. And then I will glue on my die cut. And I just love what that frame adds to this design without even having any color on it. Just a couple glued together for dimension, and it gives you a reason and a use for those smaller sized frames that are in your die sets. Now I decided at this point I wanted just a little extra something to finish this off, so I grabbed our Posted with Love set, which has these great sort of postage designs, and I'm stamping them using the Toffee Crunch ink onto that background. So that was inked with Toffee Crunch ink, and now I'm stamping with that same ink. So it's just a subtle tone on tone look. But for me, this is the little thing that totally finished off these cards. I liked them before, but then I was really happy with them once I added this little bit of stamping. And I'm keeping within that sort of diagonal design as I add these stamps to the background. And for some I use the circular element, and some I just use that squiggly postage element. I'm sure it has a name. I can't think of it right now, but the squiggles. So I'll just keep stamping those on. And on each of the example cards that I'll show you in just a sec here, I've used this stamp in the background, but in different places depending on the flowers that I stamped. You can see that on there. So let's take a look at all 3 of the finished cards. Here's the one that we just made together. And then here is one with the flowers from Love Blooms. And then these flowers are from that original set, the Enchantingly. But you can see they all follow that similar diagonal design and that sketch. Here are still shots of each card. I'd like to know, what is your favorite color combo on these? Do you like the sort of unexpected blue, the pink, or the yellow? I think for these I especially love the pink personally. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. You can also keep connecting with Penny Black on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, as well as Instagram, our website, and blog. Everything is linked for you down below, and stay tuned for our last video in this video series. Thanks for watching and happy stamping.